Yes, indeed, it's a packed show for you this morning on the Morning Brief on Channels Television. And we're diving straight into the newspapers this morning. And our media analyst, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, joins us already. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
A very good morning to you and to all our viewers.
Yeah, good morning to you. You're looking dapper this morning, Mr. Akintobi.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
Yeah, I wonder which of, was spoiled for choice this morning as far as the papers are concerned. I wonder which one, resonates with you the most. But let's dive into the New Telegraph. Listen to this. Atiku, Mark, Secondus, others, why we're joining 2027 coalition. And we have some insights there. To meet ADC leaders, opposition politicians today. So the meetings are continuing. That's, that's what this tells us. Ask Nigerians to join in on seating Tinubu coalition. No threat to the APC, says Daluri. Of course, the ruling party is responding already. That's the acting national chairman of the APC following the resignation of Mr. Ganduje. So, Mr. Akintobi, what's it for you, this coalition?
There seems to be a groundswell of consensus that President Tinubu can be unseated. Usually at the end of a first tenure, going into a second term, there's usually a lukewarm attitude that this person is difficult to unseat. So you see the efforts are lackadaisical. There's no real major effort to try to unseat an incumbent because it's relatively difficult. But this time there seems to be almost a desperate drive, which makes me think President Tinubu should be worried, because if so many people are coming together under the notion that this man can be unseated, then that means they've taken the temperature of the populace and sense a disgruntlement, a dissatisfaction with the status quo, which is what begins to open the door to the possibility of change. So all these people coming together, coalition, trying to see how there's strength in numbers, especially when you start seeing players like Peter Obi, you see Atiku, David Mark, Bukola Saraki, you see them across the aisle from different political families, and you see them all trying to come together. It's because they smell blood in the water. They believe the president is beatable as long as the elements are aligned in the right directions. So they're all coming together to take advantage of that vulnerability, and they believe that by doing it together, they stand a chance. Of course, the problem then becomes personal ambition. It becomes issues of strange bedfellows all trying to come together, because even the election that unseated Goodluck Jonathan, for example, that was the first time in the history of Nigeria that a different party will defeat an incumbent. You didn't see this kind of groundswell of togetherness to believe that Goodluck was beatable, despite the fact that the APC itself was a coalition of sorts that came together for that specific purpose. But you didn't see the kind of desperation and momentum and sheer vivacity in the movement today back then, which lets me believe that there's a strong belief that the president can be defeated, probably based on the economy, insecurity, government expenditure, a lot of things that people are complaining about. There's poverty in the land, farmers can't go to farm. So many problems are plaguing us in the country, which make the president vulnerable.
But I wonder if, this bears the markings of 2013, when the parties were coming together, the ACNs of this world, Congress for Progressive Change, the NNPPs, ANPPs of this world were coming together at that time. So is this reminiscent of what happens when you, of course, consider the differing interpretations that this coalition is being given? They're saying that, no, this is not necessarily a convergence of political parties, but actors who are trying to form a political party. What's different, from between what happened then, 2013, and now?
Well, you see, the players today are very entrenched in their individual cocoons. And you see a person like Peter Obi, for example, saying that he's not in for a coalition to contest for power. He's in a coalition to rub minds about ideas. How do we improve the lot of Nigerians? How do we improve the economy? How do we battle insecurity? All those things. That his coalition is to exchange ideas. So you look at it and you ask yourself that the way the APC came about in 2013, where it was a merger of various interests, is it possible? Can you see the fragments that are left of the PDP today? Can you see the Labour Party? Because they are all really entrenched in their own spaces. Can you see them all collapsing their structures into one unit the way the APC was successfully able to do? I think it's more treacherous waters to try to navigate, because I also think that each of them individually believe their power structures, their power centers, and to be able to now take a back seat to a larger unit. In other words, the individuals believe they are greater than the sum of the collective, and that's where the problem comes in. If the individuals thought that they were less than the powers of a collective, then there's a possibility of what happened in 2013. So I don't predict that happening.
Well, let's go to the Guardian newspaper. I'm even getting some news as to the resignation of one of the members of the coalition from the PDP. I don't want to call names until I make a final confirmation, but it's a big name that has resigned. I just sent it to me right now. Somebody really big in the PDP resigning his position, and is part of the coalition. So as soon as I get that clarity, we'll be able to tell you exactly who that individual is, as to whether or not he's indeed resigned from the People's Democratic. In fact, he's one of the people on the pages, on the front page of the Guardian. But I'll leave you for, I'll just keep you in suspense for a moment. Northern PDP leaders settle on ADC as preferred coalition platform. I'm sure you've spoken a lot about it, but this angle is to the fact that Northern leaders, so you can see they are spread across Atiku Abubakar, David Mark, El Rufai, that should be the former speaker, Tambuwa,
former Sokoto governor,
former Jigawa governor himself, Sule Lamido, and all of that. So what we're getting, according to the front pages of the Guardian newspaper, is like this coalition is building a lot of steam. And if you look at that collective, Northeast, North Central, and Northwest. If you look at that collective, what does that say to you?
It says to me, first of all, that ADA didn't get registered by INEC. Because that was the preferred, ADA, that was the preferred vehicle. But INEC said that they didn't meet up to requirements, and as a result, they weren't going to be registered, at least not for now. So they had to shop around for a different vehicle. And now, because the drivers of this coalition are mostly all Northerners. Look at all the names we just mentioned now. Going from Atiku, David Mark, Tambuwal, Sule Lamido. All of them are Northern power brokers. So in shopping around for a party, it only comes naturally that they would pick a party that is more leaning in the direction of the North, which is why this ADC is coming into play, as opposed to, say, the SDP, which was one of those that were considered before. And why not even an existing vehicle from some of the coalition members, like LP or PDP? I suppose the view is that those two are already damaged goods to some extent, because they all have their loyalists, and the loyalists will adhere strictly to each of their sectors. So it's better to come with a fresh vehicle, a new name, a new face, even if it's an existing structure. Picking the ADC simply is because the ADC already exists, it's already registered, it already has offices in all 36 states. So it's easy to move into that and have a ready-made vehicle to contest for the elections, as opposed to trying to start from scratch.
Well, I wonder if because there are big interests involved, there are big egos in this room, this coalition room, and I wonder if those egos, will be able to make sacrifices such that the coalition can move forward. Do you see that as the single biggest stumbling block in this coalition going forward?
It is a stumbling block, probably not the biggest. One of the bigger concerns is a marriage of strange bedfellows. We've already seen that in the APC, that is causing rift. So, but the players, for one thing, if you look at an Atiku, he's already telegraphed several times the fact that he's not willing to subjugate his personal ambition to the will of the collective. First of all, look at how in 2023, for example, when based on the rotational presidency, after 8 years of a Buhari administration, it was unconscionable for a northerner to be put forward by any party based on the gentleman's agreement that's keeping us unified as a country, north and south. It was unconscionable. And people actually appealed to Atiku to step down his ambition and let a southerner be presented, which probably may have given Tinubu a bigger run for his money in terms of the competition, because there were some people who simply did not vote for the PDP based on the fact that we've had 8 years of northern rule. How can another northerner be coming to contest himself for the presidency? So Atiku refused, in spite of the fact that it may have cost the PDP the election. He refused to step down his ambition. So if he's already got that kind of an ego and got that kind of a sense that this is my birthright, this is something I've wanted to do all along, and I don't care whose ox is God, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to pursue this ambition. So how do I now see him at a time like this wanting to step down that ambition for the good of the whole when he didn't have a history of ever doing that in the past? So you look at the size of the egos of the people in the room, you look at their laurels and achievements, and you say, how many of them? It's like you asking a Peter Obi, for example, to come and be vice president to an Atiku in 2027. It's not going to happen. Peter Obi made such a strong showing and has become a national figure with a near cult following that he would never play second fiddle to. It would be silly of him to play second fiddle to anybody, not even an Atiku. And he declared just yesterday or day before that he's running for president in 2027, which already puts Atiku on the back foot. So the question is, when you look at the size of the egos in the room, David Mark, Bukola Saraki, who himself has run for president before, you see a Sule Lamido, and you ask yourself, can they manage all those egos and subjugate their personal ambitions? You say, some people will say, well, Tinubu and Buhari managed it in 2013. There were big players then too, you know, who were part of that. How were they able to manage it to where, well, President Tinubu is a strategist, and you can see he played his cards very well. So he stepped back knowing that his time would come. Do any of those today have that kind of political sagacity to know that sometimes you take one step back to take 3 forward down the road?
Well, if Kanye were here, Kanye would say they need prayers.
Perhaps that's what they call him, the master of the long-term game. He's played the long-term game. He's always been,
played it well.
He wanted to be president, and it's quite inspiring to say you want to be president and you end up being president. So on that, he has to be respected for his sagacity.
Absolutely.
But what I was saying to the effect, I'm sure my producers will put it up, is like there's going to be a tsunami of resignation, and the direction may be headed to the ADC. We just got the information now that Senator David Mark has actually resigned from the People's Democratic Party to the action. Okay, his resignation did not say where he's going to, perhaps, but clearly he has left the People's Democratic Party. So maybe we'll put that up in just a moment just to show Nigerians. We don't know how many more of these resignations are coming. So for clarity, David Mark has been a member of the PDP
for the longest
all his life. In fact, he was at the vanguard of the issues around the issue of doctrine of necessity, 2-term Senate president, and you can go on and on. Even in his military days, he was one of those that was called the IBB boys. So it's been around the polity and the politics and the military, and now to see this happening, we don't know what is the next set of tsunamis that, in fact, we don't want to let everything out, but this is what we have right now, David Mark. In fact, that letter is dated June the 27th, so like it's been archived somewhere for everyone to see. So perhaps today we're going to see many more. What does this make? How does it make you? How do you interpret all of this? Looks like they found a new home in ADC.
Well, to tell you the truth, the PDP has been regressing for quite a while, and how you look at it and know that the death knell has been sounded for the PDP is because you look at like 2023 and a few years before that, that places that were die-hard PDP loyalists have been switching allegiance in recent times like a gale. It's like Jeff said, a tsunami. Can you ever imagine that Delta State would become PDP? If you look at even
Akwa Ibom.
Akwa Ibom has become gone away from the PDP. The places that were hardcore PDP have been shifting. You look at even Imo, the way it came about, and Imo is APC, and so this had already telegraphed the fact that PDP was on the back foot. This was a party that boasted that it would rule for 60 years and didn't even rule for 20, but it became problematic for the PDP and has continued to be. And when you see a heavyweight like David Mark resign from the PDP, I think it started from the day President Obasanjo tore his PDP card and said, I'm no longer active in politics, and particularly I'm not identifying with this political structure anymore. Ever since then, in drips and drabs, you've seen mass movement away from the PDP, and now it's gaining a groundswell.
Let's go to other things that Nigerians are talking about. This is in the interest of politicians. You know, I was just processing it, Mr. Akintobi, because I just thought about it. I said, this is the same groundswell opposition to the People's Democratic Party before the 2015 election. And what were the issues? The APC built their campaign on the failures of the PDP, anti-corruption, fixing security, and revamping the economy. 8 years down the line of that administration that brought in, that kicked out the PDP, Goodluck Jonathan, how did it end? And now the president, 2 years now, trying to do what he can to put things together, getting flags and commendation, depending on where you're looking at. So right now, what we should be probing is to issues around alternative ideas and not just coalition of people trying to unseat. That's why they're busy calling themselves IDPs and all of that. But let's go to another daily. And this is News Direct. Nigerian News Direct, I should say. Why lawmakers must stop incessant summon of oil companies. That's according to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil. That's Heineken Lokbobiri, Senator Heineken Lokbobiri. Says many summons unnecessary, discourages investment, orders NNPCL Limited to meet 2 million barrels per day target. If I want to add to that, Honorable Minister, the question of what happened to our refinery is not listed here. 2 million, anyway, let me leave you to talk.
Well, actually, our oil production is improving. We're at 1.7 million barrels a day now. We were at 1.4, I think, just about a year ago. So we've actually made significant progress, and the target is to hit 2 million barrels a day. What the Minister of State is complaining about is the legislative oversight function. I mean, the House of Representatives, the Senate, all of those who speak for us, who represent us, they have a right to, as part of their oversight function, to summon executives and stakeholders, especially of the oil industry, which is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. A good 90% of all government revenues come from this oil. And so whenever there are any questions about transparency, questions about corruption, Jeff just talked about $1.5 billion in turnaround maintenance for the 2 refineries, and up to today, we don't see anything happening with those refineries. So how is it out of place for the House of Representatives to summon oil company directors or management to come and explain themselves about any issues that are not clear to the House? I think that's just their job, and they're perfectly in order. What's the concern about the fact that it will discourage investors? Investors themselves know that there has to be oversight from somewhere, because, listen, even in a capitalist system, the most capitalist of all systems, you don't have complete laissez-faire whereby government hands off completely, especially on a national resource. Government has to have regulatory oversight on oil, and part of doing that is calling for hearings, summoning the players and questioning them and interrogating some of the things that may seem not to be transparent. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and you know, it's an important conversation to have, and we'll expand it in the coming days, because it's more important for us to have accountability.
Absolutely.
In that sector, having the ministers respond to critical questions on, you know, price movement.
Yes.
You know, beyond telling us when things are good.
Yes.
Alone. But we must thank you very much, Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Mr. Akintobi is a media analyst who always comes through for us on the newspaper review segment. Thank you so much, sir.
Always a pleasure.